Hello, and this is my PowerPoint on the roles of a coach. So first role of a coach is an innovator. So this is the one that brings new original ways of doing something. So searching for new techniques to improve performance for the athletes. And this would benefit the benefits of an innovator for the coach is developing new techniques, then improve performance, and the athlete will benefit from that. And this can increase the chance of winning and beating their opponent as well if the technique's more effective, but it also prevents boredom in the training, as they're innovating new ideas and new drills, so it will increase the enjoyment of the sport again as well. There are disadvantages for an innovator as a coach, as they may change their tactics or techniques too many times, so changing too much. This can be less effective and efficient, and inhibit the athlete's progression and affect their performance. Some people, particularly elite athletes, are set in ways, so may have been learning the technique throughout their career, so they wouldn't want an innovator to change and have encouraged to do so. And also too many new ideas can be confusing as well. Famous examples of major innovators in sport, used in high jump, the new technique is called the Fosbury flop, which involves going over with your back to the bar, whereas previously widely used technique involved going face down over the bar. And another famous innovation is Spain's tiki-taka style of football, which involves lots of passing and playing of the ball, and this resulted in them winning the World Cup and the European Championships in 2010 and 2012. An innovator is more effective at different age groups, and especially as well for different abilities. Having an innovator as a coach is not very efficient with young age groups, because they might not understand and they wouldn't be able to get to grips and get confused with the sport. An example of this would be having innovative analytical software with beginners who are just learning the sport. Would be a waste and be inappropriate because they wouldn't need it. They may also just do it for the enjoyment of exercise and aren't playing to win, so they don't need their technique or anything to be changed. And different abilities can have an effect as well. For example, elite athletes versus non-elite athletes will have a major impact, and elite athletes will have greater understanding of the game and the sport, and they'll be able to grasp new concepts due to experience and ability, whereas the non-elite athletes wouldn't be able to handle it, and may not have the sorry about that. And in a team sport, an innovator is more likely to involve tactics, and the team as a whole. For example, an innovator in football, who could be the manager, who changes to 3 at the back, then the shape changes the whole team, whereas an innovator of an individual could be more focused on technique and is more likely to change that, like the technique in high jump, as said earlier. Here's an example of an innovator. So there's a person doing a press up here, saying that they can't do the press up, and then the coach, the innovator, comes over and says try to do it on your knees, and that works. But then he comes in saying try this, this and this, and this is too much for the athlete, and he now has no idea what he's doing. So this is a bad example. The next type of role of a coach is a friend. So as an athlete and a coach spend considerable amounts of time together, a friendship may develop. A further bond develops when the athlete and the coach share positive and negative experience together through their time. So, for example, winning the league or something, or losing the cup final or something like that. So during the development of this relationship, the coach then learns more about the athlete and their personality, and he can use this to help them and develop an effective training plan for their personality, will help them improve. And the characteristics of a friend of a coach include supporting the athlete and giving honest feedback in order to help the athlete improve their performance, and not just saying well done when they're not doing it right, and saying instead that you need to improve it like this. Other characteristics include being kind, encouraging and loyal. The benefits of being a friend as a coach is that it becomes easier to talk to and communicate as an athlete becomes more comfortable with the coach. So if you're uncomfortable with your coach, you won't want to communicate and tell them if there's anything you want to ask them. The coach will also learn about the athlete's personality, and then they can use this to get the most out of them. So using the best training plans and tactics to be the most effective. Due to knowing their personality better, it comes easier to deliver criticism as well, as you can put it in a way that they'll take it on board and that they won't get offended or anything. The potential problems of having a coach act as a friend is if you could become too close, it could be seen as inappropriate. So it is very important to maintain boundaries in a relationship between the coach and a player. Sports such as tennis are more biased to your coach being a friend, as these are often in one-to-one sessions, and they're more likely to spend lots of time together, whereas in a team game you wouldn't be as close with your coach as you were if it was just one-to-one. And additionally, if the player and athlete are similar ages, it will more likely to form a close bond compared to a coach coaching a much younger child. In individual sports such as tennis, the coach is more likely to act as a friend towards the athlete, because in one-to-one sessions they'll spend more time together. But sports like football and so that's 11 players in a team plus subs, so even more than that, they won't spend as much time one-to-one, so the bond won't be as strong, and you're less likely to get close, as you're more likely to be closer to your teammates rather than the manager, as they have more players to look after. So here's an example of a coach shouldn't act as a friend and how he should. So here's a friend asking if he wants to go for a drink down the pub to the coach, and the coach is saying yes. And then here they're at the pub having a drink, and here's him asking again, him saying no, and then he's not having a drink there. So this shows that how this is the bad, and he's not maintaining any boundaries and just going out for a drink with his players. But here he's kept to the boundaries and hasn't crossed them, and he's not gone out for a drink, which is good. The next role of a coach is a trainer. So the trainer is to allow the body to perform its maximum in order to get the best results. So whilst a coach is a trainer, he has to be aware of the physical, technical and tactical demands of the sport, and the athlete's physical state is their main focus, so they need to make sure they're not in risk of injury or any illnesses. However, they need to be aware of tactical and technical in order to know what to train, how much to train the athlete. A trainer also needs to have a good range of activities to develop the athletes to get an optimum performance. They also need to have good knowledge of health, fitness and training principles. And as a trainer, a coach should be able to design and implement programs that are appropriate for the athletes and then reflect the sport. And when designing these plans, trainers need to take age, ability, interest, experience, among other things, into account. The most common form as a trainer is a fitness instructor. The majority of sports have trainers, but generally only at much higher or elite levels. At lower levels or grassroots levels, you'd not find trainers as part of the management team. The advantages of being a trainer is that it allows the athletes to perform to their maximum ability, because there's someone there to who knows what they're doing to make sure that they're getting the best out of them and to be the most prepared for a game they possibly can, and this will positively affect the performance and therefore the result, which helps the athlete improve. But there are some disadvantages of being a trainer, and this includes that you aren't involved with tactics or techniques of a particular sport, so you can not help develop the players. But at different levels require different types of trainers. For example, at elite levels, this will make a massive difference and maybe the difference between winning and losing. However, at a much lower level, the manager tends to be all of the roles combined, so it's unlikely that a trainer would make a huge difference anyway, as their other lifestyle habits may affect them. Also, age can make a difference on whether you have a trainer or whether a trainer would be effective. For example, a trainer for much younger kids would be inappropriate, and ineffectively they wouldn't be able to complete many activities. It would also result in many kids losing interest in sport as well. So here's an example. So the trainer is telling the athlete here that he shouldn't be drinking that because he's an athlete, and then he gives him an apple instead, so he knows about nutrition and what he should be doing. And then here's a bad example. So the coach is even asking the player to go for a Burger King after the game, and then the athlete's saying yes, which shouldn't be done, obviously. The next one is a role model. So being a role model as a part of a coach involves setting examples and representing the particular sport that you coach. When leading a session, a role model is setting an example and representing their particular sport. A role model, like a good role model, should demonstrate appropriate behaviour, and their language should be appropriate with the athletes and participants at all times. They should also accept responsibility for the conduct of the athletes they coach, and positively encouraging and not discriminating behaviour. Effective role models also wear appropriate clothing at all times, and have appropriate equipment, so they'll turn up to training in sports gear, not just jeans and a t-shirt, for example. Furthermore, a coach will try and sell the sessions to the athletes and be enthusiastic to make them interested. As the more enthusiastic the coach is in their sport, the more enthusiastic the athlete is likely to be therefore come back to another session. All sports have role models, however not all athletes at the top of their game act as a role model, and not all coaches act as role models or behave the way they should. For example, a Sunday League football manager, who should be leading by example, will often shout and swear at the referees, which is not how a coach should behave, and this is not setting an example, and he's not being a role model. The advantages of role model are that they inspire athletes and encourage participation in the particular sport, but the disadvantage are that they may make participants feel intimidated or not good enough, and they can be off-putting for some people. Also, an athlete has to set an example at all times, therefore they can be pressured on them to behave, as they can't mess up. A role model as a coach is vital for younger kids, as these are examples. Kids start to play the sport will follow. Adults are less likely to be influenced as they are more set in their ways. An example of a bad role model is diving in a sport. So a lot of kids follow their role models. They look up to them in football, and when they see a diving, they'll copy this when they play. So here's an example of a role model. So there's someone who's injured, and he says that he's here to help you up, and then the group behind him say, "Oh, that was really good," like he's a role model. And then there's another one who's saying, "Haha, get up you baby," which isn't how you should behave, and then he just doesn't get a good response. So here's professional conduct. So he's here's the good side here, and here's the coach saying to the other team that they're playing well, but then the bad side is that he's shouting at the ref, which isn't how you should behave, saying, "What was that, ref?" So this is good, and this is bad. For health and safety, here's the good. So he's got a risk assessment ready, and here is the bad. So he's just got people playing around with dangerous objects in the middle of the field. Also, there's child protection. So if someone, for example, comes up to a coach and says that there's a problem and that he's sad, it could easily be ignored by the coach, and this would be the wrong thing to do. But the right thing to do would be talk to someone who can investigate, investigate what's going on. Also for transport, like transports, games and stuff, a good way of transport is getting them all in a minibus together, but a bad coach would say, right, you need to all make your own way there. With communication, so he could be saying, "Do you understand?" And they say yes, and then he just tells them to get on with it, or he could get them to do it and see what they're doing and see if they're doing it right or not. Also organisation with all the kit, he could all have it organised, or he could just make all the kids put it out themselves, or just not have any organisation at all. Thanks, that's it.